You're listening to the In This League Fantasy Podcast Network at inthisleague.com. Download, lock in, and puck up. Hockey is here, and we've got the #1 podcast for fantasy hockey. It's the Roto Hockey Show with your hosts, Tony Healey and Brian Matthews.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Hello and welcome to the Roto Hockey Show. I'm Tony Healey here with Brian Matthews, ready to talk a little fantasy hockey. Oh my gosh. Week 22 fantasy hockey semifinals. That means the championship is next week. Brian, do you have anything going on? Anything at all?
No, I'm going to watch some golf, watch some NCAA basketball, might go ski, but the last thing I'm doing is participating in championship week fantasy hockey.
Well,
one of those years, my man. It happens to all of us, the best of us. You play this game long enough and you're going to have down years, and this is my year. And I know last year you had a couple teams that struggled, and this year you don't.
No, this year I am representing the Roto Hockey Show. What do we got? The Keeper League 2. Yep. I am playing the first place team. We are all the way to Wednesday, and I'm up 9-0 on the first place team, who has been running roughshod over the league. So this would be a big win if I can get by him. And then in the Roto Hockey Show redraft league 1, I am in the semifinals right now. I think I'm up 5-4 currently. So it's close. And my crew is like a hodgepodge crew of craziness with all the injuries. I mean, it's just been nutty. What can I say?
Yeah. That's pretty much summed up the year, I think, for a lot of folks. You know, it's like we've heard from listeners all year about kind of the craziness in their leagues, and we've obviously all dealt with the injuries and guys who have not lived up to their draft position, but all forgotten, and you play with the team that got you there to the playoffs, and you do your best, and you listen to this podcast in hopes of adding the difference makers for the weekly matchups and realizing that now you're condensed to 7 days worth of games, and this is no longer about an entire season slog. It's just about what we got left.
That's right. It makes decisions with a Matthew Tkachuk who's day-to-day right now. Oh boy, do you drop him? Do you hold him? Where are you at?
Yeah, you see a lot of guys now that are on the waiver wire that you're like, oh, someone dropped him. And it's like, yeah, someone dropped him. They hurt day to day, only 3 games this week. No reason to even have him roster him. I need other players right now. And you'll see players being streamed like that all the time.
Well, I just like to say my ad for the week so far, Tanner Pearson, 2 goals in 2 games.
Good call.
Just saying. I hope you folks listened because he's playing well.
Yeah, good work.
All right, folks, if you're listening to the podcast, you likely found us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or through our partners, the In This League Fantasy Podcast Network or the Grandstand Sports Network. Hopefully, you subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, or whatever podcast app you use. And please don't forget to submit your reviews of the podcast on iTunes and the other sites. We have a bunch of new listeners this year, and we'd love to receive the feedback, and we're happy to mention you on the show. So, Brian,
yes.
No mailbag because we're going into championship week. There's way too much to get to.
Yep.
But for those folks that are out of the championships, out of the playoffs, maybe doing doing other things. You still want to play a little fantasy hockey. You still want to draft. Boy, do we have an app for you. Brian, why don't you tell the folks about the draft app?
Well, as we've been pimping here on the show, we've been doing these contests pretty regularly, and I think folks by now know that more than 1 million people have already downloaded the draft app. You can play in real live NHL drafts right now, be done in under 5 minutes, and get paid out the next day. Drafts are filling every second, so you can join one whenever you'd like. All new players, folks, this is the best part. All new players get a free entry into a real money draft when you make your first deposit, but you need to use the promo code NHLRoto. That's right. Free money draft. Real money
draft.
Free.
Real.
It's there. Just use NHL Roto promo code. And Tone, it gets even better. Draft is so sure that the folks out there are going to love it that they're offering our listeners a money-back guarantee of up to $100. Just search Draft in the App Store or go to draft.com and play free right now using the promo code NHLRoto.
All right, Brian, before we get to player news, we have some listener news to get to real quick. I just wanted to mention Mike Ray sent us an update, and I don't know if you remember Mike, but he is the gentleman that has a fantasy league that he does his own podcast for, and they have a bet about walking down the aisle alone at his friend's wedding in Cancun.
I do recall. I remember my advice.
He wanted to give a little update. He went for it. Okay. And he ended up still missing the playoffs by 8 points, but he's not out of it because the guy Jay that he's playing, guess what happened?
What?
He missed the playoffs because of a tiebreaker.
Ouch.
So they're both in the consolation bracket and are getting ready to play each other. Now the toilet bowl has a much bigger meaning, as he says.
Intrigue.
And the best part, the bride listened to our podcast. She loved it. So he's pretty sure.
Shout out to the bride then.
That Sam, the hot bridesmaid, is definitely going to hear about this.
Oh,
so
interesting, Samantha.
I don't know if that helps or hurts, but
well, listen, if our friends, I mean, good luck to them. Again, I'd love to play matchmaker here on the airwaves, but I don't even know where to go with this. I mean,
no.
I don't know where to go. That's not going to get me in trouble, so I'll just leave it alone. But
yeah, I think that's a good
idea. Good luck to everyone involved. Sam, I hope that you enjoy the wedding as well. I don't mean to be, again, I think I said this originally. No one wants to be presumptuous, but it is a wedding. People are single. Alcohol's flowing. Good times can be had. Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly, yada yada yada. We had breakfast the next morning.
Wait, you skipped the best part. No, I mentioned
you
the
can't
breakfast.
Yada over that. All right, now let's talk a little injury news, and it doesn't get any better. It just does not get any better, even in the playoffs. Torrey Krug, defenseman of the Boston Bruins, hurt in Tuesday's game against Carolina. No update on his status yet, so. That's one of those wait and sees. He is not a must drop unless we find out something shortly that he's going to be out a while. One piece of good news in the injury news today, Jack Eichel, who did not skate last week, is skating again with the team. He's practicing. He's progressing. So there's a possibility he could come back this week, Brian.
Yeah, they're talking about, I mean, he's a competitive kid and wants to get back out there. Finally took part in kind of full drills today at practice. So I don't think you'll see him in Buffalo's next game. I think they have Toronto coming up next. And I don't think you're going to get the Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel show. So fans who purchase tickets hoping for that, you're not going to get it. But could be back in time for weekend games or into next week. And Buffalo does have 4 games next week, so be ready to activate him. And that's a nice little bonus getting him back for championship week.
Yeah, so if he's out there, you better add him now and IR him if you can, because he's going to be valuable in the last week of fantasy hockey.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Sabres did have a big name injury. Kyle Okposo has a concussion.
Yeah.
He collided with Bobby Ryan. I don't know what else to say, but I think he's probably done for the year.
Yeah, easily done for the year.
Yeah, so there you go, Kyle Okposo. Matthew Tkachuk, as I talked about earlier, he's out with an upper body injury. He didn't play Tuesday. He got hurt on Sunday, and he hasn't skated in practice yet, so he's day-to-day for now. Listen, I know how good Matthew Tkachuk has been and how valuable he is. 49 points in 68 games, 25 goals, 24 goals, 25 assists. Along to go with some hit numbers, some power play numbers, 61 penalty minutes as well, 188 shots on goal. The fact is, if he's day-to-day and you don't know if he's going to play, I don't think you can hold on to him. I think he's got to go.
Yeah.
Moving on to another must drop from a defenseman that's been valuable all year, Jared Spurgeon of the Minnesota Wild. He's expected to miss a minimum of 4 weeks after suffering a partial tear of his right hamstring.
Did you see it?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you might not, don't watch. It's gross.
No, I'm not going to watch that.
It's like he does like the splits into the boards, and the boards won and his hamstring lost.
Oh, it's terrible. That sounds awful.
No.
One of the defensemen that we've been talking about recently on the podcast because of his hits and blocks, defenseman Robert Hagg of the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah.
He is going to miss the next 2 weeks because of a lower body injury.
NHL leader in hits out for the championship, which is a big hit for those of you who listen to the show and know how we like to use players like that for when they've got multiple games in a week, use them for Sunday streamers, just because you know that they're a guarantee for those peripheral categories. But don't worry, we'll fill you in with some other guys for this week's matchups and for Sunday.
Borowiecki for the rest of this week if you can get him. All right, moving on to the St. Louis Blues. Carter Hutton, neck. He didn't skate in practice today, and he felt uncomfortable when he got up in the morning. So the St. Louis Blues have called up Ville Husso again, and this just means Jake Allen is back to being the number one goalie, no questions asked. I don't know if he's been dropped in your league. He has been dropped in quite a few leagues, actually. Listen, Adam, you might as well. Moving to Winnipeg. They lose Scheifele, right?
Yeah.
Mark Scheifele's hurt. He missed both games to start this week, but he did skate Monday, no contact jersey. They're going to be cautious with him with the playoffs coming up. They're pretty much, I think, really safe in their playoff position. So that's just one thing to watch. But with that said, the guy they got at the trade deadline, guess what? Paul Stastny, late scratch for the Jets against Nashville. He left the pregame warmups early with a lower body injury. That stinks for everybody, including Winnipeg and Stastny's owners, because he's been good since going over. So I guess that's just something you're going to have to watch. Again, he's somebody that can be dropped if need be, because you got to win now. It doesn't do you any good to hold him for next week if you're not going to win this week. And that's it. That's it for the injury news. Not a ton really to get to, but some key injuries heading into next week's game. Now that the sad stuff is out of the way, let's talk a little Sunday streamers. Oh, Brian, this is quite the Sunday slate here.
Yes.
What do we have for games?
Well, it's nice that we actually have a selection to go from as opposed to like a 3 or 4 game slate. So this Sunday, to get yourself into the championship, win your semifinal matchup, it could come down to the following games. 8 of them. Carolina will be in Brooklyn to play the Islanders. Calgary's in Vegas. Dallas is in Winnipeg. Detroit will take on the Colorado Avalanche. Edmonton and Tampa are playing. New Jersey and Anaheim. St. Louis at Chicago. And Washington at Philly.
All right. Washington at Philadelphia rounds us out. We're looking for points, Brian. Where are you looking to go?
Oh, completely out of left field, off everybody's radar. But you know what? I look at the matchup that Colorado has. I look at how well they've been playing. And I'm going to Carl Soderberg. I know that's only 6% owned. So, again, he's going to be available for you. But if you're looking for points, he has 4 goals, 4 assists in his past 7 games. The Avalanche are playing great. Detroit just kind of playing out the string. So I expect Colorado, who obviously pushing to keep their playoff spot, I think they need to keep piling up the wins in a Sunday home game versus a Detroit team traveling west out of the Eastern Conference. I like Colorado's chances. And again, Soderberg has been playing well and is one of those guys that I think that will definitely help you out.
He's been really, really good lately. Like you said, 8 points in his last 7 games. He's one of those guys too, just like I said, Tanner Pearson, that seems to get points in bunches, and then he'll go long stretches. But when you're in the middle of a bunch, he is a very useful guy.
Yeah.
I am going to the Philadelphia-Washington game, division game. I'm looking at rookie Nolan Patrick, 17% owned. Nolan's got 9 points in his last 12 games, including 4 on the power play. He's getting a Washington team that's 5-5 in their last 10. Philly's cooled off a bit, but Patrick's still putting up points and getting increased playing time. His line with Oscar Lindbohm and Jakub Voracek has been good lately. And like I said before, Patrick's really starting to make a name for himself on the power play. I mean, he really is that second unit, and it shows. He's just firing pucks from all over the place, and he's a much, much better distributor than I thought he was. So Nolan Patrick against Washington, who's been struggling like as of late, like I said. Holtby, we don't know if he's going to play. You don't know if Grubauer is going to play. Neither guy has been looking stellar lately, so I wouldn't mind taking a chance on the young kid. All right. So that moves us from points to penalty minutes.
Oh, this was easy for me, and I'm staying with the Flyers. And who else to go with on a Sunday when you need penalty minutes but Radko Gudas, our old friend, up to his old tricks. Remember, he's been hurt a lot of the year, but guess who's top 10 in penalty minutes per game and 11th overall in penalty minutes? It's our buddy Radko. And he's also getting a ton of hits again. He has stepped up his physicality, which leads me to believe that he's feeling a lot healthier than he had been a few weeks ago. So 26 hits for Gudas in the past 2 weeks. So I like that you get kind of the dual thing here. You get someone who's guaranteed a few penalty minutes, but also guaranteed to rack up a bunch of hits as well that you can dump into the lineup.
There you go. I love it. Radko Gudas looking a little spry. I guess you really can't use the word spry in Radko Gudas.
Yeah. Sure you can.
All right, why not? All right, I am going to somebody I suggested last week, Garnet Hathaway of the Calgary Flames, 1% owned. I did talk about his penalty minutes last week, but I used him for hits. Well, last week he got you 5 penalty minutes on Sunday, along with 3 hits, so I'm going to go back to the well with him again.
I like it, though.
Keep him in mind this Sunday. Or keep in mind that he has the 4th most penalty minutes, 29 over the last 30 days. This kid is he's getting more playing time than he has all year. Calgary's fighting for a playoff spot against the division leader, the Vegas Golden Knights. So listen, I don't think you can go wrong adding him if you're looking for penalty minutes and hits. So since we said hits, let's go to the hits category. Where are you looking?
It's easy to go chalk, right?
Yeah, you have to sometimes.
You need to get to the championship week, right? So why not go with the NHL leader in hits per game, Adam Larson of the Edmonton Oilers, only 15% owned. They're playing Tampa. I feel like he's going to have to play a physical game to slow down some of the speedy forwards on the Lightning. And since he returned from bereavement leave, his past 3 games, 18 hits, 15 blocks. So you'll notice that Larson also a multi-category contributor. So you're getting the hits guaranteed. You're also getting a fair number of blocks. And I have a feeling that I know where you're going with blocks, and Edmonton versus Tampa, kind of an easy decision there.
Yeah. For hits, I'm rolling with Cal Clutterbuck. Again, chalk. 4% owned, New York Islanders, playing Carolina. It doesn't get any simpler than that. And you're looking at these guys, that's where you got to go. So, like you said, you think you know where I'm going with blocks. Again, chalk. Chris Russell, 10% owned. Edmonton on the road against Tampa Bay should give the season leader in blocks plenty of opportunities to block pucks. I look for Edmonton to get outshot, outchanced, and outclassed by a much better and much deeper Tampa Bay Lightning team. There's my hits and blocks. Where are you going for blocks?
Well, I looked at, again, you're going to kind of sense a theme here with the three guys that I picked. Granted, all defensemen, you can't fit them all, but it's going to depend on what you need. And each of them is going to bring something to the table for you. I'm going to that Washington-Philly game again. This time I'm going to the Washington side, and I'm going with Brooks Orpik. Only 7% owned, but again, a good source of penalty minutes, a good source of hits. He's 12th overall in the league in hits. And best of all, he's very much a contributor in blocks, 6th overall in the NHL, 20 blocks in the past 9 games. So again, you talked about the Flyers offense, how well they've been playing, especially at home. The Caps have been struggling. So again, I expect that to be kind of a physical game, one of those divisional games that is kind of a precursor to a playoff matchup. Granted, right now that's not the playoff matchup, but those two teams have met in the playoffs before. You know what it's like. March hockey between the Caps and Flyers. So I think Orpik's a great selection on Sunday.
Absolutely. All right, so that moves us to the goaltending categories. There are a bunch of teams. 8 teams are playing back-to-back this week. Mm-hmm. Carolina's at home against Philly and then at the Islanders. Chicago's at Buffalo and then home against St. Louis. Edmonton is at Florida and at Tampa Bay on their Florida road trip. The New Jersey Devils are at Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Kings, and at the Anaheim Ducks. Philly is at Carolina and then home against Washington. St. Louis is home against the Rangers and at the Chicago Blackhawks. And Tampa Bay is home against Boston and home against Edmonton. So let's look at the goaltenders that you're possibly looking to trot out on a Sunday. Scott Darling, Jean-Francois Berube, Al Montoya, Keith Kincaid, Alex Leon, Ville Husso, and Peter Budaj.
That is a whole lot of just awfulness, right?
There are 2 goaltenders. Well, there are 2 goaltenders that I would seriously look at. I know Scott Darling has not been great this year, but he has been better as of late. And him at the Islanders, I am not I don't have a warm fuzzy feeling about it, but I'm not adverse to playing him there. But I think my number 1 play is probably Peter Budaj at home against Edmonton. Edmonton's on a road trip, back-to-back games. I think Budaj is my guy. I
like that.
Budaj is my guy.
Yeah. You can start a little campaign. I think just based on the matchup and again, Edmonton's on the SoCal or the SoCal. I'm looking at New Jersey on the SoCal trip, and I meant the line above them being in the Florida trip, obviously. So a long way from home, playing the best team, arguably one of the best teams in hockey, best team in the Eastern Conference. People can stake their claim for Vegas being the best team in hockey. Yes, but the Oilers all the way across the continent and playing in Tampa, second game in 2 nights against that type of team. Yeah, I think Budaj is easily the pick. Keith Kincaid's kind of a sneaky play that I kind of like just because of, if you look at his past few starts, he's been pretty decent. So he may get one of those starts while they're in Southern California there. I don't know which one of those I prefer, but I mean, if you need starts, you need starts. So beggars can't be choosers.
This is true. This is very, very true. Kincaid, like you said, has been better. He's 3 on my list only because I hate playing backup goalies on the road. I know Darling's on the road, but at least it's against the Islanders, and Carolina is at home against Philly the day before, so it's not like the travel's all that great. Mm-hmm. It's not like Kincaid going cross country. But like you said, Budaj is definitely the number 1 ad for the weekend.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the Sunday streamers are done. Goalies are done. We got to talk championship week here.
All right.
And championship week this year gets a little crazy, a little nutty here. That's week 23 of the fantasy hockey season, March 19th through the 25th. There are 11 teams with 4 games. Arizona, Boston, Buffalo, Columbus, Edmonton, Florida, Los Angeles, Montreal, Nashville, Pitt, and Vancouver. 0 teams play 2 games. So they're either playing 3 or 4. So you're getting 1 extra game out of those 11 teams. So it's going to make your drops a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That extra game is going to have to be the tiebreaker, and they're going to have to be pretty evenly matched for you to make that move. Brian, let's talk about forwards for next week.
Well, it took me a bit to come up with someone that you look at the 4 games, you feel like you need to grab a player with 4 games just to have the edge. If you're going to be grabbing someone, you don't want to grab someone who only has 3 games. What's the advantage there? You got to look at who's playing well, and then you got to look at ownership. And someone I came up with was Adrian Kempe of the Los Angeles Kings, only 11% owned. And here's what I like. He's centering the red-hot Tanner Pearson, as you described earlier, as well as Tyler Toffoli. So he has taken over as kind of the Jeff Carter on that 70s line. So he's also getting run. That line is getting run as the second power play unit. Now the Kings power play is nothing to write home about. However, they are getting some special teams time. So more time on ice, more opportunities for offensive production. I like it. A 4-game road trip, and they play Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So should it not pan out for Kempe in those first 4 games, you can drop him on Sunday for somebody else and get a 5th start out of that forward spot for your team.
I like that a lot. I am going to piggyback on somebody you talked about last week. Forward center Riley Nash, 20% owned of the Boston Bruins. In his last 8 games, he has 10 points, including 3 goals. This all started when he took over for Bergeron on the top line, centering David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand. He is a must-own next week, with all 4 games being played on off nights. That's right. Boston is the only team next week to play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday.
Nice.
Add him now. 20% owned is way too low going into championship week, especially with 4 games. Like, he is I cannot stress this enough. As long as Bergeron's out and Riley Nash is centering that line, he's putting up points, and you've got to add him. All right. Enough about the forwards, unless you want to add any more to Riley Nash.
No, I liked him last week, and he's continued to be a savvy pick. And again, like you said, just based on their schedule. And I think most of the folks who listen to this podcast understand, at least I hope you do by this time of the year, the importance of looking at the schedule. Tony has put together the playoff matrix for our patrons, so that's been something we've talked about. But just knowing where guys are going to slot in, knowing when to cut bait on some of the last guys added to your roster, knowing that you need them for certain matchups, not for others, knowing how to block other teams in the league from grabbing guys, etc. So grabbing and holding someone like Riley Nash from last week, or grabbing him now through the championship week, just maximizing the starts that you have. Those are the types of things you need to realize. And the same thing with Kempe. Listen, by no means do I think he's going to go all of a sudden go off and have 4 goals and 3 assists next week, but he might get you some points. He's got 4 games, and then you can drop him to have somebody else on Sunday. So it's those types of matchups that you got to look at.
Definitely. All right. Defenseman.
Yes. All right. I am going, you know how I feel about some of these things, and I like to use guys that are going to give me peripheral stats, because too often defensemen are either too tough to gauge as to who's going to be producing offensively, or the guys who are producing offensively are already scooped up and on teams, right? Especially come championship week, who you're facing or who's already out of it. So Michael Del Zotto, though, is only 12% owned, Tone, and he is someone that you look at that he has 4 games next week, and they play all good offenses: Vegas, Chicago, St. Louis, and then Dallas on Sunday. And I think when you look at what he brings to the table, which are hits and blocks, he's going to have to be there again doing exactly that. He's going to have to be the guy that's going out there, playing the tough minutes, and coming back with those peripheral stats, which we all need to win our matchups. So easy call for me there at 12% owned.
I like it. I am going to talk about a defenseman from the Florida Panthers that I feel like we probably should have talked about sooner. Mike Matheson, 7% owned. He's playing on the second power play unit. He's putting up some big-time shots lately, including 13 in his last 4 games, as well as 1 goal, 1 assist, 9 hits, and 11 blocks in those last 4 games. He is the Panthers' version of Alex Edler. He's getting 22 minutes a night and even has a few games in the last 30 days over 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Now throw in the fact that Florida has 4 games next week, including games against Ottawa, Montreal, and Arizona. And then their 4th game is against the Blue Jackets, who have not been great lately. And I think you have yourself a pretty solid play. Like you said, defenseman getting points is very tough to gauge. But when you have one that puts up a decent amount, a couple of shots per game, a couple of hits per game, a couple of blocks per game, that adds up really fast. Yep. And it's something that you can count on. So Mike Matheson, I still cannot believe that it's gone, that we didn't talk about him last week. It's my bad, but I believe Florida only had 2 games last week, I think. So that could be part of the reason why. But he has been good in the last month. So take a look. All right. Rear guard to goaltenders.
Well, I had to go with the guy who's starting tonight for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Casey DeSmith. Only 12% owned, playing better than Tristan Jarry lately, and 4 favorable games for the Pens next week with the Islanders, Canadiens, Devils, and Flyers on the slate. Also a Sunday start against the Flyers that's mixed in there. So I look at that and I say, okay, you know what? Give me someone who's played well against 2 poor offenses to start the week, and then some potential weekend games. And we don't know what's going on with Matt Murray. We don't know what's Jarry's going to start. So, but again, it's worth the ad and having these guys around.
I like it. I am not as confident in my goaltending pick getting all 4 games next week, but Antti Niemi of the Montreal Canadiens, I don't even know. Yes, 11% owned. Montreal has Florida and Buffalo on the schedule next week. I'm looking to spot start him next week. This is not the guy that's going to win you a week, but he's the guy that could pick up that extra win possibly, or at least get you a bunch of saves. His percentages have been really good. If you look back at his past 6 games, he's only let up 3 goals 1 time, and that's the most goals in a game he's let up. All right. He's played really well. I know Montreal isn't going to give him a lot of goal support, so wins are going to be tough to come by. But if you need starts, I think Niemi gets 2. Hopefully he gets at least Florida and Buffalo. And with how bad Lindgren's been, I feel like Niemi's going to get more of a chance. I mean, you know what you got in Lindgren at this point. He's just not doing himself any favors in there. You put the veteran in and let him do what he does. Maybe he plays and gets himself a contract somewhere else as a backup next year. So honestly, if you need a goaltender, DeSmith's not available. Spot starting Niemi next week is not the worst thing you can do.
I'll be honest, you created the show sheet and you were in there and you made your picks before me because I was leaning Niemi, and when you grabbed him, I was like, oh, there you go. So I agree. I know it's crazy to think about all the kind of jokes that we've made at his expense this year, but I mean,
dude, who would have thought you would have Niemi versus Lindgren the other night, or not Lindgren, Niemi versus Kari Lehtinen the other night?
Yeah,
craziness, absolute craziness. So, all right, players to keep an eye on. I have Arturi Lehkonen of the Montreal Canadiens, 1% owned. He's got 3 goals in his last 3 games. He's put up 12 shots on goal in that time as well. Somebody needs to score for Montreal down the stretch. Lehkonen looks really good. He's even played himself into earning 3 more minutes per game, and he's on the second power play, second line and the second power play line as well. I was high on him coming into the season because he looked really good at the end of the year last year. He got hurt. He's just come back fairly recently. And I'll tell you what, for a team that's lacking skill, Arturi Lehkonen has skill, and he's really put on a show lately. Go look at some of his highlights in the last 2 weeks, and I think you'll be really surprised at what you see. So that's just somebody to keep an eye on. Maybe if he heats up, you add him for the Buffalo game next week or something like that.
I mean, that's where you look at some of these young guys getting call-ups right now. You see a few spots where guys are filling in for injured players or they're getting kind of an extended look. It's worth kind of watching to see what happens with starting lineups, watching those practice reports and making the call there. The guy I'm keeping an eye on, Tone, is kind of an old dude, but the Buffalo Sabres have 4 games next week. Jack Eichel is returning back. The Sabres offense has been putrid, but Jason Pominville has actually been very good this month. 2 goals and 5 assists in the past 9 games. And if he is going to be playing with Eichel again, potentially, or that he's being utilized on the power play with Eichel, it just helps the situation that Eichel's coming back. And so obviously you can't add Eichel. Well, look to Pominville because, again, Okposo's out and Pominville's going to be the main right winger, he and Reinhart. So one of those guys is going to be on Eichel's wing, and hopefully it's Pominville. And again, the way he's been playing, getting a ton of shots on goal during this stretch and has produced. So Buffalo with 4 games next week, 2 of those. You've got Arizona coming into town. You've got Chicago. Actually, no, Chicago's this week. Sorry. But
Buffalo, you've got, let me see here. You've got Nashville, Arizona, Montreal, all in Buffalo, and then at the New York Rangers.
Yeah. So 3 of those games are actually
favorable
for offense. You're right. I mean, unless you're Buffalo and you're 31st in the league, which a shout out to our buddy Steve Laidlaw and his tweet today, which thankfully I had finished my coffee at work when I read this, but he tweeted out, he's like, even if the NHL expanded the playoff field to 30, the Sabres still wouldn't make the playoffs. Well done, my friend.
Thank you, Steve. We appreciate it.
So that was a good one.
All right, so there goes your ad drops for the championship week. Now let's talk about the Beer League Talk player or fantasy producer of the week. I really don't want to do this. All right, Brad Marchand.
Yeah.
4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points in 3 games played. I hate to pick the nose.
Yeah, but
sometimes you just have to. I mean, you got to do it sometimes. And sometimes you have to acknowledge people for their accomplishments, even if you don't like them. And Brad Marchand, as much as I can't stand that little rat, he had a fantastic week last week and really helped out a lot of fantasy
I thought
teams.
You were going to go with my boy. I'm shocked that you didn't
Malkin.
go. No, he was a couple weeks ago.
I looked.
Tyson Berry, man. He was number 1 ranked player overall last week, or the past 2 weeks. I think Seth Jones was the number 1 player last week.
Berry. Yeah, well, I mean, last week, 2 goals, 2 assists in 3 games, 4 points, 11 shots on goal. It's pretty good. But
hey, listen, I'm not.
We put up 8 points.
Seth Jones, though, a lot of people pumping his tires for Norris candidacy with the month he's put up. I mean, he's got, 6 goals and 5 assists this month. So playing very well.
Yeah, 3 goals and 3
injured
assists.
The other night,
or 3 goals.
Injured the other night, but should be back for the weekend is what I'm seeing.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that. He was part of the reason why my DFS night the other night did not go perfect for me. I had him in one. I was going against him in another. And then all because, believe it or not, Brent Burns and Evander Kane could not get one single hit in that game. All they needed to give me was 1 hit on top of what they did, and I would have had a very nice DFS night. Instead, I lost $2.
Those are the worst.
So it could be worse. Could be worse. But still, you never know. And folks, listen. Championship week is next week. We're going to have a podcast for Championship week. But you know what that means? We got a yearly tradition that we've started. We started last year. We are going to have our way too early mock draft coming up. And if you want to be part of that, I'm excited for it.
You are. Just are you prepared?
I'm excited to draft anything. That's true. But if you want to draft in the way too early mock draft, guess what you need to do? You need to be a patron, Brian.
That's right.
Have to be. Or a co-host.
All right. Fantastic.
So you're in, I'm in, and we're going to open it up to our patrons to see who wants to do it. And we're going to have a way too early mock draft, just like we did the year before. Yeah. Get that out, see where people stand at the end of the season, and go from there. But if you want a chance at getting in, you know what you got to do. You got to join our patron page, become a patron of the show, and we'll get you in. And don't forget, all the patrons have first dibs on every mock draft going throughout the year. So you want to guarantee that you're going to be in all these things, just become a patron. That's all. That's all you got to do. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
All right, folks. All right. Let's get them to the championship. Let's give them their advice.
Let's get moving. All right, folks. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you listen to us. And remember, you can find all of our other shows and all of the other great ITL fantasy podcasts on the ITL homepage, inthisleague.com. And please don't forget to check out our friends at the Grandstand Sports Network. You can find our partners online at www.grandstandsportsnetwork.com and on Twitter at grandstand_SN. And like we talked about, you can support our podcast by becoming a patron of the show. Visit our page to see all the great extra benefits we give out to our generous donors. That's Patreon.com/Roto Hockey Show. Depending on your level of support, this could include extra content and interaction with us, bonus podcast, exclusive Roto Hockey Show swag, and an invite to our Group Me page. And that page has been on fire lately. We have been dishing out advice like crazy on that thing. So if you want to talk fantasy hockey year-round with a bunch of passionate people, become a patron. I'll invite you to the Group Me app, and you will have a good time.
I like it. All right, folks, if during this week you need yourself some advice, in addition to the podcast, you have something you heard that you want to listen, I need some last-minute information. I need some advice. What do I do with this guy? This guy's not available. Hit us up on Twitter. You can find Tony at T_LOC11. You can find me at NHL Roto. You can send it to the show account, and we'll both see it at Roto Hockey Show. Or feel free to shoot us an email, NHLRotoTony@gmail.com and NHLRotoBrian@gmail.com.
All right, Brian. Listen, I've been up a lot. I'm going to be up much, much later the next couple of weeks. Finally into the house. So if you want to send me a housewarming present, I won't turn it down.
You're putting the kegerator in. I got to think of other things for your new bunker that you're going to be putting.
The soundproofing
foam is nice. Although that's impersonal. So I got to give you something. I give you something good.
What's more personal than putting soundproofing in a room? I get it.
I'm gonna lean I'm gonna get you like a framed, like some rando Montreal Canadian player.
Lyle Odeline.
No, that's not rando. And my favorite thing about Lyle Odeline is when Matthew Barnaby during the Sabres Canadians, I think it might have been a playoff series, but it could have just been regular season, that he dropped a Planet of the Apes reference on him and called him Cornelius all the time. It really is just an amazing burn.
Yeah, I don't know if Lyle knew.
Didn't get it. Lost on him.
No, probably not. So, but no, I was letting the listeners know if they feel like sending me a housewarming present, they can DM me on Twitter. I'll send you an address.
Your new address, yes, I like it. All right.
Yeah, so, no, it's good. I can't wait to unveil the new bunker when we're finally done over the summer. It's going
to be awesome. All right. I know we don't have everybody. Not all of our listeners are in the U.S., but I think the NCAA men's basketball tournament has become popular enough that some folks outside of the U.S. look at it. So since we're here in upstate New York, the brackets are going to be put in tomorrow. We have to have them submitted. Who do you have winning it all on your bracket, Tone?
I think Villanova.
You're gonna go with Nova. Yeah, that's a good. I have them in the Final Four, but I went a little off board, and I took a 3 seed to win it all. And
Michigan.
It is Michigan, but not Michigan. Everyone went Michigan State. I went Michigan.
No. I was talking about the Wolverines.
That's who I went with. Look at you, sense that from me through the airwaves. Well, that's who I went with.
I did.
I went with the Wolverines. And
I've been looking at this thing like crazy.
I was doing it earlier today. The craziest thing about Michigan and their coach, John Beilein, he's coached all over the place, very well regarded in basketball circles, but coached some very small schools, but actually got his coaching career started at a very small high school in Western New York that my cousins all went to. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Newfane,
Western
Central
New
School
York,
District.
There you go. Western New York is really representing in this tournament with Syracuse getting in as a surprise, and the Bonnies, St. Bonaventure beats the big UCLA Bruins, and now they're taking on my Florida Gators.
University of Buffalo's in. Bonaventure's in.
That's right. Good Lord.
Syracuse, I have the game on in the background here. They're moments away from beating Arizona State and moving. They were one of the last 4 in as well, so they're going to be in the field. And then
get rid of those Sun Devils.
I have Bobby Healey coaching Arizona State. He has a very punchable face.
Oh no!
I don't like Bobby Healey.
No, you cannot.
I don't like Bobby Healey, little rat.
I loved Bobby Healey. First of all, second of all, after you watch the 30 for 30 about him, you'll have
about him. It was about Christian Laettner.
Difference of opinion. Yeah, well, I found more of the Bobby Hurley stuff much more.
Anyway. But you've got them, and then you've got who else am I missing from New York that's in there? Iona. Come on, Iona's in there. They're going to get crushed by Duke and be out of it before we hardly knew them.
No. You can't say Duke's going to crush anybody as a 2 seed.
Fair enough.
I took them in one pool. I don't know, last year or
it must have been when they lost as a 2.
And, I remember that's the worst. I think they've done it twice now.
I don't know. 15-2.
Maybe they were a 3 seed.
They've
one
had
time.
their share of upsets, but I think Duke losing as a 2 seed. That
will go down in a day that will live in infamy. Was it Chattanooga or something like that? Or Louisiana Lafayette, maybe? I don't know. Hell if I remember.
I've got it. They've lost. Duke is a 2 seed. They lost to a number 10 seed in the second round. They lost to a number 7 seed in the second round, but they lost to number 15 Lehigh.
Oh,
crazy. And they lost it in their biggest. This is the one I think you might be remembering. This is the more recent one. Was when Duke was a 3 seed and they lost to number 14 Mercer.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
that was crazy.
I remember watching that at the bar and losing my mind.
Yeah. I think that was the same year that Florida Gulf Coast made it to the Final Four. Do you remember?
Oh, what were they called? The Space Jam or something like that. What were
I have no idea.
Phi Slamma Jamma? No, that's not right.
That's an original.
No, I know, but there was what did they call them? Never mind.
Dunk You, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know. We're talking way too much.
Anyway, we're way off. People have turned the podcast off by now, and if you haven't, thanks for sticking with us.
All right, so I'm rolling Villanova. You're rolling the Wolverines.
I am.
I don't know what everybody else is doing, but shoot us a message on Twitter. Let us know.
I like it. All right, Tone, good luck in your bracket. Good luck in your playoff pools. And hopefully we're talking that next week that you're about to win a championship. And folks, next week's podcast, again, we're going to help you wrap it up, bring it home, give you some Sunday streamers next week. Obviously no ad drops next week, but we'll be talking fantasy hockey playoffs once again. And hopefully we can get you guys the title belt.
Well, I would just like to say, hopefully, I'm going for 5 championships next week.
Wow.
That would be really fantastic. 5 out of 8. I have a possibility of winning the title. So,
all right.
Wish me luck, everyone. All right. Talk to you later, Brian. Folks, enjoy the tournament. Enjoy fantasy playoff hockey. And as always, talk to you next week.